Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our nation has to offer, especially health care. Across every state and every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Ambassador Robert O'Brien is a former national security advisor during Mr. Trump's first term. He's currently chairman of American Global Strategies. He's been in the diplomatic game for many, many years. Robert, thanks for helping us out. In a sense, you talked to us last week and the week before, so you knew this was coming. It was just a question of when. And Iran, mullahs, and military slaughtering all these dissident civilians. So as you look at this story, Robert O'Brien, what do you see here in the early hours of this joint U.S. Israel attack on Iran? What do you see, Robert?
Larry, thank you for having me on. The first thing I see is the entire responsibility for this attack is on the Ayatollah and the mullahs. President Trump was assiduous in his diplomacy. He gave him a great deal. He gave him such a good deal that there were even people here in America criticizing President Trump for being too lenient on the Iranians. He basically took Mike Pompeo's 10 points that Iran had to agree to avoid an attack in the first term, narrowed it down to 3. He said, look, get rid of your ballistic missile program, which could threaten America. Get rid of your nuclear program, your weapons program. You can still have a civilian nuclear reactor, but stop enriching. And stop giving money to the terrorists of Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis and Katiba Hezbollah. And we're good. And sanctions will be lifted, and you can re-enter the normal economy, the world economy. That was a tremendous deal for the Ayatollahs. And what did they do? They thought they were negotiating with Joe Biden or Barack Obama. They came back with half measures, and they tried to extend and pretend a real estate term for negotiations and pretend they were doing something that they tried to, as President Trump likes to say, and you've heard this many times from the President, Larry, tap him along and wait until he had to outlast the fleet and have the fleet come home and then outlast the President in his term in office. So they're responsible for this. They didn't engage in good faith diplomacy. They tried to play the Iranian playbook, and they brought the attack on themselves.
Is that those 3 points distilled from Pompeo's first 10 points? Has the president said that? Has that been out there? It's very interesting. Has that been out there publicly?
No, that's out there. The president has said it over and over again. That he hasn't mentioned the reduction from the 10 points, but he's made the 3 points very clear. And that was a great deal for the Iranian regime. They could have stayed in power, and not so good for the Iranian people immediately, but it would have kept us out of war. And as you know, the president hates war. The president took this step with a lot of reticence because he hates putting the men and women of armed forces at risk. But he won't hesitate to do so if the American people are threatened. And he knew, look, the Iranians were going to get a nuclear weapon, and they were going to get an intercontinental ballistic missile. That was just a question of time and resources. Resources and time would have given them those. That was going to happen. And President Trump doesn't know who his successor will be, or maybe 10 years or 20 years down the road when the Iranians actually get this technology and marry it up with the ballistic missiles. But he did not want Americans to be blackmailed and he certainly didn't want Manhattan or Los Angeles to be hit by an Iranian nuclear weapon. And so he did what he had to do to protect the American people, even if that means putting our servicemen and women at risk. So he does it with reticence, but again, this is on the Iranians.
You think there's sort of conflicting accounts here, but General Keane talked about how the joint attack was going after the command and control and the Iranian leaders, Ayatollahs presumably, and IRGC and whoever else. There's another, Fox News is reporting that the U.S. is not bombing the Ayatollahs. Like his compound was hit pretty hard. It's Israel that's hitting the leaders. We don't know where the Ayatollah is. We just know that his compound was destroyed. I mean, do you buy that? The United States is not hitting leaders, but only Israel is? Does that make sense to you?
Well, it makes sense because the Israelis are the ones that have the exquisite intelligence, Larry, and you know this from the White House. The Israelis always knew where the bad guys were. You never want to get on the bad side of Mossad and Bibi Netanyahu because they're very clever. They'll track you down. And so it doesn't surprise me. We saw what they did to the leaders of Hezbollah in Lebanon with their cell phones and their walkie-talkies and that big meeting that they hit. The Israelis are very good at finding out where the bad guys are and targeting them. So, look, we have to split resources. Iran is a big country. There are a lot of targets, and it wouldn't surprise me if the U.S. took on the tougher bunkers, the launchers out in the desert, things that our bombers and our long-range stealth fighters can target, and the Israelis took on the individuals, the command and control, which, by the way, those are military targets. Those are not civilian targets. Those are the commanders of the Iranian army and Revolutionary Guard, so they're very legitimate targets for the Israelis to hit, or for us to hit, for that matter. But my guess is there was a division of labor. But again, I'm always speculating.
It's also important, I think, let's not end this too soon. You've already got Macron of France calling for UN meetings. Like, who cares about the UN? And by the way, speaking of the UN, as you well know from your experience, that down through the years, Iran has always played cat and mouse with the UN. They never let the inspectors in for long, if at all. And they're not letting them in at all recently, okay? So we don't know about, their enrichment. We don't know. We never knew how close they were to an actual nuke. And that goes with the development. You mentioned ICBMs, as well as their medium-term missiles. The UN is powerless here. Why would anybody talk about going to the UN? This is something, all these Arab countries are behind us. I was reading, Robert O'Brien, the Saudis are with us because Iran is attacking our bases in Saudi Arabia. The Saudis are backing this. Everybody's backing this. They want to wipe out Iran as much as we do.
If the Europeans wanted peace, President Macron, who's a good man, I know him. President Macron ought to send the Charles de Gaulle, their aircraft carrier, to the Mediterranean and get involved in the fight and help us wipe out this evil Iranian regime. And by the way, they've killed many hundreds of Frenchmen. When the Marine barracks were hit by Iran through their proxy Hezbollah in 1983, all those hundreds of Frenchmen who died were at the hands of the Iranians. If France wanted to get justice for their soldiers and bring peace to the Middle East and bring peace to Lebanon, which they're very concerned about, President Macron ought to stop calling for the UN to be involved and get the French Air Force, which is quite effective, get the French Air Force involved in helping us, take out this Iranian regime. That would be the best step you could take for peace. Look, I understand, Macron and Starmer and these, Europeans wanting peace. We all want peace, but at some point we have to realize the Iranians don't want peace. They're not that into it. So we and you're right about their tactics. The Iranians are the masters at negotiation. They're the masters at stringing people along. They're the masters at these fake inspections. So you're absolutely right. They give you a little peep and then expel the inspectors and then have a negotiation about how they can come back in. And by that time, they've moved all the material that was going to be inspected. So, you're 100% right. There's no role for the UN now. The role right now is for fighter bombers and naval forces to degrade the Iranian regime so that the people of Iran can take it over as President Trump called for. He said, stay in your homes and be careful now that the bombs flying, but as soon as we're done, you go seize the government. It's your chance of a generation to get your freedom and go back out in the streets and seize your government and have a democracy.
So far, by the way, speaking of Macron, Prime Minister Carney in Canada is actually backing us. How about that? He doesn't he doesn't back Trump on anything, but he came out in favor of this. And then I hate to add politics to it, but you kind of have to. One Democrat has stood up and publicly endorsed this action. Fetterman of Pennsylvania. Fetterman. He's my new hero. He was the guy, he dressed up in a suit, nice suit and tie at the State of the Union, Robert O'Brien, and shook President Trump's hand. Okay? Whereupon he was trashed by the rest of the Democratic Party.
Isn't that amazing, though? You're polite to the president, the leader of your country, the president of the United States, and you get attacked for being polite.
It's incredible.
Where's the Democrat Party gone that being polite to the president is some kind of sort of a hate crime or a microaggression?
It's absolutely incredible to me.
Fetterman loves America. Look, you and I would disagree with Fetterman on most of his economic plans, but the one thing I won't disagree with him on is his love for America. He loves America. He loves working people in America. They have different, and this is how it used to be, Larry. We used to have differences of opinion on policy, but we love the country. Now, when I see all these Democrats come on, I haven't seen one yet on CNN or Fox this morning that's actually supported the troops, supported the taking down these evil jerks and thugs in Tehran. And if you're in favor of women's rights, they beat women for not wearing a hijab. They kill women for not wearing a hijab.
Right.
They hang gays from cranes. If you believe in gay rights and human rights and women's rights, why wouldn't you welcome this attack on these evil thugs?
Boy, isn't that the truth? We're the Sam Nuns of the Democratic Party. Actually, going back, the Al Gores. Al Gore was rather a hawk on back in the Cold War. Bill Clinton too. I mean, it's just incredible. Anyway, my concern here, and it's something General Keane raised earlier, Robert, and I'm just passing it along. You just don't want this mission to stop too soon, right? The whole world.
No, this has to be at least a multi-day, probably a multi-week mission.
Right.
This is going to go on for some time, and it's going to involve all of our allies. It's going to involve the Gulf Arabs. It's going to involve Israel. It's going to involve us. We need a lot of lead down range, so to speak, for the next couple of weeks to take these guys out, because they've dug in. They knew this was coming. They knew they weren't going to play ball in the negotiations, so they had to, at some level, prepare for this. So it's going to take a while to dig them out.
And hopefully we can get the leadership. I mean, look, one way or another, you got to take the leadership out. You just have to. We didn't do that, the last mission, as well executed as it was. We did not take their ruling government. I mean, look, you were talking about 35,000 people getting killed. How many? It's a week later. How many more do you think got killed by this crowd?
Oh, Larry, these guys are brutally vicious, and they talk about Hamas and the Palestinian genocide in Gaza. The Israelis were dropping leaflets on buildings saying, "We're going to bomb this building. Go to safety." That was what was happening in Gaza, and people are so upset about it. But you never heard a peep from the left, the pro-Palestinian left. You didn't hear a peep about the Iranian people getting slaughtered by their own government. Tens of thousands of people being slaughtered. And we didn't even hear about it. This was a true genocide. This was a real genocide that took place. And you're right, Larry, until the leaders are the evil, leaders that authorize those killings are taken out and removed from power. There's no safety for the Iranian people, and there's no safety for the American people.
Absolutely. Ambassador Robert O'Brien, who was the National Security Advisor to Mr. Trump in the first term, he's now chairman of American Global Strategies. Robert, thank you. We appreciate it very much. As always, be well. Talk soon. Folks, we'll take a quick break and then talk a little economics with my pal John Carney of Breitbart. Be right back.
Thanks for listening to The Larry Kudlow Show. You can hear The Larry Kudlow Show Saturday mornings at 10. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our nation has to offer, especially health care. Across every state and every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.